And then we'll live on Facebook. Takes just a second for it to load. All right. Wonderful. Done redirecting. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Well, I like to say good morning because it's good morning to me, but I know it's afternoon for most of you. But thank you guys for hanging out with us again today on day 2 of our summit. We are so thrilled to have Heather with us today. She is an author and has a whole bunch of amazing resources about early literacy, as well as some other things that she's going to share with you today. As always, if you have questions or comments, please make sure you post them in the Facebook feed and I will get them to the speaker as we're going. So Heather, take it away.
All right, thanks so much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Heather Shumaker, and I write books for both kids and adults. And the ones that we're going to be talking mostly about today are It's Okay Not to Share and Other Renegade Rules, which this particular book has a lot of stuff about emotions and early literacy that we'll get into today. And also the next book, It's Okay to Go Up the Slide. And this one gets more into things with having to do with school as you get into those stages. So welcome to everyone. I understand that a lot of you are at-home parents. And sometimes it's hard to see just what good and value you're doing at home. So whether you're an at-home parent or you are there some of the time, as we all are, here's some ideas about joyful and meaningful literacy. And I want to start off by saying that learning to read and gaining language skills should be both full of joy and deeply, deeply meaningful to kids. And it doesn't have to do with flashcards or being taught with ABCs and things like that. The kind of really meaningful and wonderful literacy that you can do is just integrating it all into regular life. And here's one of them. I'm going to show some pictures because this really helps when talking about this. These have to do with using literacy and words when your child is screaming, crying, or really upset for some reason. Maybe they're sad or angry. I love to do literacy during temper tantrums. This is a prime time to get out the pen, get out the paper, and write down their innermost feelings. So here's an example of early literacy for a child who fell down and scraped her knee. And comforting the child and also saying, you know, let's write down how you feel. My leg hurts. So this is something that the child dictated, and then of course give the pen to the kid and let them get out those feelings. So this is what I mean by meaningful literacy. Is it's coming at that moment of intense emotion is when you might introduce ideas of reading and writing, even though you're not teaching the ABCs. Here's a child who was 3 years old and away from home and missed his mom. So the adult writes his words in a dictated letter. And then the child, in this case, knew quite a few letters himself. But it's the idea of writing a letter if you miss someone. I just want to give an example of this. When I was driving somewhere with my, he was about 2 or 3, and he had a favorite blankie. And favorite blankie had been left at home. So we were far away. We weren't turning around easily to come back. And he realized he'd missed his blankie. Well, tears and screams coming from the back seat. When I figured out what was wrong, we pulled over to the side of the road. I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen and I said, let's write a letter to Blankie, tell him how you feel. It won't bring him back to you, but you can tell him how you feel. And so that's what we did. And he wrote down, I wrote the words, he dictated, Dear Blankie, I love you, I miss you. And then I gave him the piece of paper. And after getting those feelings out, the most meaningful thing in his world was his Blankie, and he'd just written a letter to Blankie. He was able to hold that piece of paper the rest of the ride and stopped screaming and crying because he had got his feelings out. We couldn't suddenly magically deliver the Blankie, but we could let Blankie know how he was feeling and get those feelings out. You can also do it when kids are super, super angry. So this is what I mean by when they're having a temper tantrum and screaming and arms and legs are going. This is a great time for literacy. It's meaningful. It gets what they're really feeling about written down and shows them the power of words. So this is one of my kids who didn't want to come in for a nap one day. He really, really needed a nap. And so he was so mad, he wanted to throw things at me. And we numbered them and wrote them down. You can see that this not just has literacy ideas, this has math ideas. It has big numbers like 100 million strollers and 3,000 chairs. And all the things he wants to throw are big things like a house and a car and trees. So this is, he didn't throw a single thing at me. By the time we got done with this list of things, we actually flipped it over and then he scribbled on the back. I said, show me how mad you are. And he wrote how mad he was and nearly went through the paper. So, and then when we got all the feelings out, he didn't throw anything at me and went inside all calm and went to have his nap. So expressing feelings is a wonderful way to incorporate literacy into your daily life with your child. Remember, and of course, emotions is an entirely huge topic. If you're interested in more of this is in my first book, It's Okay Not to Share. All feelings are fine, but all behavior isn't. So you have to accept that mad feeling, accept that scared feeling, accept that sad feeling, but channel the behavior so the expression of it is acceptable and stop it if it isn't. All right, so early literacy also doesn't just come when kids are crying and screaming and upset. It can also come all sorts of ways in daily play. So here's some examples of just getting used to having you write down the words that they need for their games. Maybe it's a police station they're playing. In this case, it's a pony wash. If they build a fort, incorporating the words for this. And of course, they will tell you exactly how to spell it. So just putting play and words together and making it meaningful for kids. Also, when kids have conflicts together, siblings, neighbors, whoever it is that you encounter, they need to set limits on each other. And if they're having some conflicts, help them set limits and say, hey, don't do that to me. Don't pull my shirt. No punching, no this, no that. And if you want to keep playing with that kid, then you have to be able to follow their limits and their rules. This can be used for all sorts of things. Sometimes kids just want to build a little house and have it be their own. So in this case, only zebras could come into the house. And if you came in, no yelling. This is a child setting limits, gaining practice in how to set boundaries so they feel comfortable. So when they feel comfortable, they can welcome others in. And other kids learning that it's not just adults who can set limits, it's kid on kid. That kids can set limits on somebody else. If they don't want to be splashed in the face or they don't want someone yelling in their ear, they can speak up and say that. And you can underline the importance of that limit by putting it in writing and how powerful then writing is. The kids can't read. They're too young to read. They're too young to write most letters at all. But by putting their ideas up in paper and another kid comes by, you say, what does this say? I'll read it to you. It says no yelling. If you go in this house, there's no yelling. So that's another way. It's part of their play, but it's also part of conflict, everyday conflict resolution. Another great one, partly because, as you heard, the name of my book is It's Okay Not to Share. Well, kids can take turns, but they have to decide when they're done with their own turn. It's quite different than having to be what we typically call sharing, which is giving it up on demand just because another kid says, hey, I want a turn. So letting the kid have what they're playing with, what they're engaged with, not interrupting them, and helping somebody else wait for a turn. You can use literacy in learning to wait for a turn, such as a swing, or in this case, a trampoline, waiting until, if it's a popular item, then make a waiting list. And the kids might be able to start to recognize the first letter of their name eventually, or they might just put, I've seen kids who are used to waiting lists, they will get a pen and make a waiting list themselves, and they'll kind of make a mark the spot splot that they know that that's the one they use because they use the green marker, and someone else will know to come get them because they remember watching them write that. It has to do with sequence. It has to do with starting to understand what the letters in their names are. And it has to do with learning to wait. And that is such a hard skill with emotions. So that it's okay if it goes on, this long turn goes on for hours or days. They will be done at some time. And when they're done, when they're truly done with that toy, then go get the next person on the list. And that makes that person feel valued as well. Or you can just write a sign. You know, Sam is waiting for, there's lots of trucks available, but Sam's waiting for a particular one. So write that down. Sam wants the crane truck when Zeke is done, and put the paper next to the truck so that when Zeke is done playing, he'll look at the paper and say, oh yeah, somebody wanted that. Maybe you've forgotten who, ask you to read the note again. But it's the idea of putting what's meaningful to kids, sharing disputes, any kind of play disputes in writing as a natural part of children's play. So this is what I would say is a lot of meaningful early literacy that just happens in our everyday lives. And there's also, of course, a lot of joyful literacy. That's stuff you probably do already. It's singing, it's puppets, it's finger plays, it's all sorts of things like that. So reading books together, reading aloud, and don't forget to, if your kids are storytellers and they like to tell stories, then you can do, they can dictate their stories to you. So they're too young to read what their stories are. They're too young to write it themselves, but they're pretty good at talking. So they can talk out their story and you write it down and then read it over and over to them and maybe even staple it and put it into a book form. They love that. So that's all early literacy. It doesn't have to be something that's sitting down and like school or watching videos. It's just you talking to them, you singing to them, you doing puppet plays together, whatever it is. It's wonderful, wonderful things. So I'm going to, and it's all things that bring silliness and smiles to kids. Literacy should be a lot of fun. So here's a little sum up. Joyful early literacy, it's play and music. It can be all this conflict solving with waiting lists. Expressing feelings is what we started off talking about. That is a big one. And most people, you may feel a little ridiculous the very first time you grab a piece of paper and a crayon when your child is crying and you say, let's write down how you feel. Be prepared. You might feel a little bit on the ridiculous side, but what's wonderful is it works. They want to have their innermost thoughts and feelings come out. And once those feelings are expressed and expressed accurately, and if you write down the wrong thing, they will correct you. Once it's expressed and expressed accurately, they feel so much better. It's just like you, when there's a lot building up inside and then you talk to a friend or your partner and it all comes out. There's a relief to that. And so you can't just bury those feelings. They get buried alive otherwise. But to let them come out, there's a lot of relief. And then you can move on to the next thing, or you can move on to problem solving. I wanted to give you a few resources. If you don't know any finger chants, this is things like, where is Thumpkin? Where is Thumpkin? Any kind of things that you can do with your fingers. With really young kids, you can do things like Samantha, 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 whoops, Samantha, whoops, Samantha, 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 Samantha. You can do that with any kind of names. You know, two little blackbirds sitting on the gate. There's so many finger chants, and they're fun. And you can do them with the kids' hands, or you can do them with your hands. Here is the beehive. Where are the bees? Hidden inside where nobody sees. Watch, and you'll see them come out of the hive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bzzz. So if you don't feel that you could just come out with 20 finger chants on the drop of the hat like that, then there's lots of places you can learn them on the internet. This is just one resource I thought would be useful to you, where you can see actual videos of people doing these finger chants and just learn one or two, get comfortable with them, and then learn another one. There's ones in all kinds of languages, and it's a really fun way to interact with your kids together. A few more resources. I have a podcast called Renegade Rules that focuses on early childhood and parenting. And I also have a podcast called Book Smitten, which is all about children's books because I'm also a children's book author. Again, these are the two books that I've written that may be able to help you. The one about emotions is the first one, It's Okay Not to Share. And this is my latest children's book, which is a ghost adventure story that has a big Newfoundland dog in it and 3 kids going on an adventure. It's called The Griffins of Castle Carey. And if you want to connect with me in other ways, I do have an author newsletter that goes out. And if you use Facebook, my Facebook name is Heather Shumaker, writer. So I have Katrina here, who's available for reading out your questions to me if you have any questions, and would love to know, even if some of you already do some finger chants and songs and things like that with your kids on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah. So I am like blown away by what you just said, because I was a teacher for 12 years and I taught older elementary. So, I mean, literacy is kind of built in, right? But what you're talking about, I have a 3-year-old now, and that early literacy is totally different than what I taught in 5th and 6th grade. And I was seriously like taking notes because I mean, we do a lot of those things. We do the finger chants and things, but like writing down what they're saying and like having them color their emotions like blew my mind. That is so
Yay!
amazing. I know that my son will love that because he's very talkative, he's got a lot of vocabulary, but still like the emotional part of it is still growing. He's still learning, right? So I know it's going to be super helpful for me. So thank you so much for sharing all that information in such a short period of time. Because like I said, I just felt like, holy cow, I just learned so much in such a short period of time.
And as an adult, don't take it personally, because often the child will be angry at you. And so if they want to say, I'm so mad, or I hate you, mommy, or whatever it is they want to say, don't take it personally. It's not personal. It's a kid with a very big feeling who needs to get that feeling out. And you can be most respectful by writing down exactly what they say. And if you have to hedge a little bit, you could say, you're so mad, you're saying I hate you. But you don't have to take it as a personal insult. This is really not about you at all. This is about you coming in to help and guide a very upset little person who's out of control and needs your help.
Yeah, it's definitely it's very easy to take those things personally, right? Because we're one-on-one all day, him and I, so it's definitely easy to do that. But I appreciate that you mentioned that, because I know that there are some parents that are going to be like, I don't want to do that because I don't want them to say that about me, or whatever the situation is. So thank you so much. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. I know that there's going to be a lot of value for all of our moms that are, dealing with little ones at home and trying to figure out how to help them regulate their emotions, and even just, how to increase that literacy at home in a very meaningful way. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will email you any questions or anything that come up, and we can just go from there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather.